Thank you everyone for arriving on time. This session will be about Bayada Snowflake to Databricks migration. And on stage, we have our three speakers there. We have Venkat, Elaine, and Pradeep. So I would hand over to you to start the session.
Thank you. I will start. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Elaine O'Neill, and I'm the Chief Data Officer at Bayada Home Healthcare. I will go through the company and who they are. It's a very mission-driven caregiving organization, and I've been fortunate to be part of this company for 16 years. My background is traditionally in accounting and finance. I usually introduce myself as a recovering CPA, but I do not identify with that young lady anymore. But my journey throughout Bayada has brought me all the way through operations into the finance world and into data and analytics, which I think is a good journey to be on. You see how all of the transactions connect throughout the organization. I work alongside Venkatesh, and I will let him introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you, Elaine. My name is Venkatesh Guruprasad. My journey into Bayada is less than 2 years into the company. I was brought in to standardize data architecture, data engineering, data governance in the company from foundational level. I'm happy to be part of this journey with Bayada because we are not only mission oriented, but we are very disciplined in our approach on investments and technology choices, iterative mindset. And just the way how Databricks has built the platform from the ground up to implement data engineering and architecture at scale. We are looking at the foundational capabilities first before we go in and build vertical use cases on top of it, right? So I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, Venkatesh.
Thank you, Venkatesh. This is Pradeep Jain here. I lead the client partner team at Credence. Part of my job is to work with Elaine and Venkatesh, listen to some of the challenges that they have. But most importantly, we get to bring the solution to Bayada, right? So probably very privileged to be in this role where some of the challenges that Elaine and Venkatesh are seeing is something across all the healthcare organizations are seeing as well. So hopefully we can shed a little bit light on how we are solving the migration project and how we are going to enable Bayada to be AI ready. Most importantly, start empowering them with agentic AI use cases in the future.
Cool. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Bayada Home Healthcare. Not very well known on the West Coast, but definitely known on the East Coast. So we just celebrated our 50th anniversary. We came to LA, there was about 3,000 of us, we did it all up. We had a wonderful time, but we've been 50 years providing care to people in their homes where care should be provided, and we'll go into some of our beliefs there. We are a nonprofit. That is not, for an organization of our size, that is not very popular in this space. It's a very fragmented type of industry. There's a lot of mom and pops that are in this space, or there's a lot of hospital networks that are now in this space thanks to COVID. We just are over $2 billion of an organization and still on a good growth trajectory of about 8.5% year on year, so still growing within our markets. We service 44,000 clients in their home every single week. We operate on weeks, months, and quarters. We are very diligent in getting our financials out, our operating metrics out every single week, so we watch our measures. 44,000 clients from children all the way to hospice. The continuum of care is covered. We employ about 33,000 caregivers and clinicians across the organization as well. So every single week, we are generating payroll in-house for 33,000 caregivers and clinicians. Across 347 states, offices, in 23 states across the US. We are also in India, Ireland, and New Zealand. And we have about 10 joint venture partnerships. So we've connected with some of the major hospital networks in some of our more saturated markets like Philadelphia, New York, Charlotte, and connected their at-home care is delivered by Bayada. So that is our relationship with the hospital networks. We are 0% chance of being sold. Our founder, Mark Bayada, he donated the company in 2017 when he retired. He made his son, David, the CEO, but he donated the company because he wanted to make sure that we be here for another 100 years, and that is our lasting legacy, that we will be in this caregiving, Bayada home healthcare for the next 100 years. I'll go into some of our core principles and how we're kind of structured and founded. We truly, truly believe that care provided in the home is best. Post-COVID, most other organizations also believe that care provided in the home is best. Healing happens in the hospital, true curing happens at home, and we do it across the entire continuum of service. So I'm going to start on the left and talk about pediatrics. We bring home kids from the neonatal intensive care unit every single week. We are partnered with CHOP. We have many stories about bringing kids home for Christmas that will touch your heart, and we do it with pride. The complexity of these kids and the diagnoses that they are coming home with are becoming more and more complex as we've been in this business. We are now bringing them home with equipment. We have HICU, home intensive care unit, so we're able to provide higher acute care at home rather than be in the hospital. That saves money. That saves the payer money. The payer is very interested in getting this work done. We graduate then to adult nursing. Adult nursing is our adult population who needs nursing almost around the clock, but definitely on a continuous basis. In our home health population, there are Medicare patients. They're usually coming out of the hospital. They've had a wound, a hip replacement, and they have short amount of care for a period of time. Hospice is our end of life. We have spiritual care, we have social workers, we have a whole team that readies a family for hospice care. Assistive care state programs is our main home health aid program. So think of the bath visit or the changing that you need for your mom or your grandparent. We deploy those caregivers into the home to help them be independent. I have my great-grandmother, and she doesn't want her mom helping her get changed. She would rather somebody else come in and help her get changed. We provide that care. They feel independent and feel like they're not depending on their children for it. Assistive care is the exact same type of practice. For behavioral health, for us, that's autism. So we specialize in some autism centers across the country and engage with a lot of diagnosis with children. Habilitation is when those children graduate and they have developmental delayments. We help them with that service. So if you think of all of the types of services that can happen in all of the communities, whether it's in a facility or in a home, we can provide that care, and we bring the caregivers and nurses to do that.
Perfect. A little bit about Credence. We are one of the strategic partners for Bayada. We are close to 3,000 person strong, building boutique with scale, specializing in healthcare use cases. Hot off the press, we were named the partner of the year 5 times in a row. This is something I sort of start saying, which we feel very proud of, because one of the biggest differentiator that we bring to the table is we don't look at problems from a technical point of view. We try to understand the use case that the customer is trying and bring in the relevant accelerators to make it happen. So that's a little bit about us. And of course, yesterday we also won the Growth Partner of the Year, which is something we are very proud of.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about some of the issues, the business problems that we are faced with within our organization. We are highly performance driven. We mine our data the way that we can so that we can understand how we are doing on a weekly basis, how we're doing against the care model that we have developed. With all of these service lines, they almost act like individual companies. How do you consolidate all of that together and show the big picture for the organization? How do you govern all of that? We are a very entrepreneurial organization. We get a lot of requests that come our way that says, can't you just and give me from a data perspective? And we have to be able to keep that entrepreneurial spirit moving, or we won't end up in 25 states, 26 states. We are, like I said, purpose-built and not-for-profit. We have our Bayada Way, which is a wallet card that we live by, every member of the organization. And we truly believe in this system and the value system. If you know anybody who works at Bayada, they all know about the Bayada way. It is true and testament and has been around for about 25 years. From a future forward perspective, we're on the cusp of innovation. I'm going to say, because I've been here for 16 years, that Bayada is usually a fast follower, not an innovator. They're not usually the first one to go to market with anything. They'll watch what everybody else is doing, learn a little bit, try a little bit, and then move in one direction. But from a clinical perspective, it's getting so complex, and we are losing caregivers and clinicians like you would not believe. We need to maintain the workforce. We need to provide reliable care. So we need to innovate, and we need to step up, and we need to figure out a way to manage an ecosystem of solutions. Now, everybody's into documentation. Let's reduce the amount of documentation on our clinicians. They won't give up that power. They need an amount of power in capturing that documentation. So we are committed to new ways of educating them, new ways of developing them, and giving them new tools to first assist them before we can completely automate something. I'll quickly go through our history. We like to call this the Bayada eras. This was our Taylor Swift moment of 2024. And it's really how we've moved from a data perspective and an architecture perspective from the founding years all the way to where we are. And again, most organizations are going to start on paper. We built a homegrown DOS system called Bears, and believe it or not, Bears still exists in our ecosystem as a legacy platform. And it's really hard to unhook out of something that's so customized. It's really, really difficult to do that. So we've been on this journey of trying to unhook ourselves from Bears. We've been introducing some mainstream platforms like HomeCare, Homebase. In 2017, we replaced Great Plains with Workday, which added more tech stack to what we were not really prepared for. And then in this transition years is when we have like a soup of organizations in our infrastructure, and we're not managing them like they should be. There's no coordination. Everything's happening in a silo. HomeCare, Homebase sits over here. Workday sits over here. How does everything communicate? How do we bring all of the data out? And while the fingers on keyboard person who's trying to do a schedule or approve payroll, they can move forward, we're really not being smart with the data that we have. We're not coalescing it down into what does this mean for us? How do we do better? We're just grinding the grind and doing it over and over again. And that's not scalable, right? So we're transitioning, our strategy is actually transitioning into the scalable years, and that's when Databricks entered into the Bayada relationship. And the offerings of how do you streamline, how do you orchestrate, again, I will say this is an ecosystem of solutions. How do you manage an ecosystem of solutions, and how do you ensure that as you scale, you're able to input more, you're able to decommission more, you're able to keep that alive from a continuous improvement perspective. This is not a set it and forget it. We set it and forget it 10 years ago when we put our data cubes in place, and we thought we were ahead of the game. We had clinical data, we had financial data, but then we added all of these practice management systems and we lost control. So thanks to Venkatesh, Databricks was introduced to the organization to help us solve some of those problems. I can go into more of the problems that we were trying to accomplish, but again, from like a structure perspective, where are we looking to go with it? Simplification. Simplification is the name of the game. Well-orchestrated, simplification, ecosystem. These are buzzwords for us in the organization. So we need to be able to ingest all of the data. Venkatesh will tell me we have 65 plus sources of data that are coming in at any given time, and we need to be able to bring them in a standard format. We need to take down the silos between all of that data and be able to put it together. Our patients are served by multiple practices. You can be on adult nursing and receive habilitation services. You should not look like two clients to us. You should look like one, and I should be able to see a patient 360 on that particular client. Improving clinical care, we have to, we must. We are losing the caregivers through burnout because of it. The federal government is introducing even more regulations around how you perform care and how we'll give you a star rating. You're a 4-star, a 3-star, a 1-star, based off of how they think they will measure you. We have to stay on the cutting front of how they are implementing measures so that we're able to keep up with them. A lot of the data that we do today is manual. There's a download from one, there's a cube extract from another, there's a report over here, and our analysts combine it all together in their own data set, and then they churn out the data, and they build it, and they build it. A lot of manual effort, a lot of time, means it takes a long time to make decisions in this organization, and the decisions to make positive impact are really difficult to make. That is where we are, and those are the solutions that we're looking for. So as we were introduced to Databricks then introduced us to Credence, who also has some ways to be able to accelerate where we are going. We are already behind the 8 ball here. Want to add?
Absolutely. Next slide, I think.
Sure.
Venkatesh, do you want to just share a little bit about some of the challenges that you are facing, right? Not just from a technology front perspective, but what were some of the things that you had to think about when we were in Snowflake, and what made you decide to move into Databricks?
Yeah, thank you. So I think the left-hand side summarizes the challenges. I think most of you in your organization, you probably have similar things, that we have listed there. When we have 7 to 8 different practices, whether we like it or not, the origins of it becomes a data siloed environment. Data is all over the place. Now we need to figure out what to do with it to make the best decision possible. Because data are siloed, you can't make insights better to the end user, more actionable and more specific to their needs. And we have multiple data platforms. So we had SQL Server data warehouse. We started our journey to Snowflake before I joined. Now we are retiring both of them into Databricks, right? So we went from 3 data platforms into 1. So multiple platforms creates challenges on the scalability of the whole data process as a whole. And we as an organization, we are entrepreneurial, as bound in terms of how our offices run. We wanted to give them access to the tools they need so they can make their own decisions. So it doesn't need to be a central data team giving them the reports or the insights. We want them to be self-service driven in how they manage their own business, right? So that was a challenge. And when you put all these things together, the big elephant in the room is the governance, because it's not about technology, it is process, business process, people, all of them combined is what makes a governance actually work, right? So what we, at a strategic level, what we decided was, go to the right-hand side there, we want to get to a unified data foundation, so collapse all the multiple data platforms into one, and that's where our strategic investment in Databricks came in. It is operating our, acting our enterprise data lake and also our reporting analytic engine, sit on all together in one. And the second one thing is very important. I think we highlighted the insights, inefficient insights on the left-hand side to real-time decision insights. Back 10, 15 years ago, I've been in the data analytic domain a lot. And 15 years ago, the biggest selling point for organizations or for platforms was you want to be actionable, insight-driven company, right? So, hey, I will give you actionable insights, right? I think we live in an era where actionable insight will not move the needle. We need to get to decision-based insights, where you are not telling the officers to say, hey, your recruiting is down because your job description of the portal is bad, but you want to be able to move that needle and say, hey, can I build an agent where it automatically updates the job description for the next month, so your recruiting catches up again, right? So I think that's the innovation that we are exploring, and we recommend that for a lot of you guys who are thinking about insights. Now don't stop at actionable insights. Talk about decisions you can take, and give that capability to your end users how they can actually make those choices with some automation built into it, right, and a background. And because now we are able to collate all the infrastructure into one place, now we created a highly scalable, platform to meet our needs, and also move the needle of data consumption to the self-service analytics. And later in the slides, we are talking about some tools that we are, rolling out to our end users and the innovations that we are building around it to make this data, accessible to our end users in the moment they need to see this. So they're not coming to a data team for building a report or building insight, and obviously the governance piece is the foundational thing that we are starting the journey in the company, where we are trying to build the right governance framework to make all this happen as we move forward. Right?
Something that this slide does not talk about is making Bayada an AI-ready company. So Elaine, as a CDO, right, how do you, these are some of the tactical challenges that you see, but how did that AI readiness play a big role for you to do a migration towards Databricks, and what were some of those cultural challenges that you saw making the transition as a CDO?
Sure. I think there are a couple of challenges. One is that we are a highly tenured organization. So it is really hard for people to change when you're a highly tenured organization. They get set in their ways, their workarounds, but when you bring in people and you observe how folks are doing their work and you ask why are you doing that? Just because there's no other way, this is broken, it doesn't work. You then light a little bit of a spark and a little bit of a fire of people saying, why am I doing this all the time? COVID was a big wake-up call, I will say, for the organization as well, on what's important, what's not important, what should we be doing, how do we become more productive, how do we have better utilization, like these, operational effectiveness and efficiency plays started becoming top of mind. And when you go into the scale years, those are the conversations that you have. How do we do more with what we have today? How do we, work smarter rather than harder? And we had conscious conversations around them, but the demands are coming in from the business. The demands are coming in from the clinician. The ideas are coming in from the clinician in the home that's saying, hey, I have this app and it can record my notes. Can I use it? And we're saying, no, it's not within the firewall and there's no security. You can't. But everybody is innovating and ideating in some way, shape, or form. And as an organization, we're taking a step back saying, there is a part of the organization that is change ready now. And they are the high adopters. And why don't we use case a certain number of solutions and go about it that way? It doesn't have to be this massive change that you communicate to the organization. You don't have to scare anybody. There's nothing to be afraid of here. When you start getting that small amount of adoption and implementation and folks don't even realize that it's happening, things just feel simpler and seem simpler. You don't have to, it's not this big hairy thing, right, that I need to be afraid of. It's not a monster under your bed. It is welcomed when you say to folks, hey, you've been working with an agent the whole time.
Makes sense. And probably the next slide is going to be a little technical heavy, so for the technical folks out there, they'll probably understand this. Venkatesh, can you share, this is the legacy architecture of Bayada, right? This is pre-Databricks era, right? Can you share a little bit about your legacy architecture? What were the bottlenecks that you were facing? And most importantly, what triggered this change for you? Yeah.
So I think we have put notes under each block. I think that kind of summarizes the challenges that we were going through. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 different data platforms. So, so that results in 3 different versions of sources of truth for our business, right? Which is really hard, right? Finance teams look at our SQL warehouse reports and they think that's the source of truth. And we started journey into Snowflake warehouse, and our operation folks said, hey, this is my source of truth. Now you create the rift, right? Whose number is right or whose number is wrong, right? So, and on the right-hand side, it's about 2D reporting experience, right? Which is how the industry evolved, right? BI was evolved as a 2D reporting, experience, and still, for large organizations, it's still a 2D reporting experience, right? So either they zone in on a tool or zone in on a platform and build a whole BI stack around it, right? And you build all these smarts and cubes and fact tables, you throw all kinds of technical stuff on top of it and make it so big. At some point that don't scale, both operationally and financially also, right, as companies grow. So those were the three main areas, right, to say, hey, we need to take a pause and really see when we go to the scale years, right, what do we have to do that needs to be right to the organization. And when we need to go from 2D BI, reporting to a self-service analytics is a major leap, right? And you cannot have 3 different platforms and 3 different versions of source of truth to make that happen. That won't work, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, we just saw the challenges that we are facing, right? But then, we live in a world where there are so many options when it comes to data platform, right? I can at least name 10 of them in my sleep. But when there are just so many options, right, what are some of the key KPIs or some of the key criteria that you take into consideration, not just from a use case perspective, but from an enterprise perspective? What are those evaluation criteria that you had gone through to make the decision to migrate towards Databricks?
Yeah. So, again, we are in a Databricks summit. I don't want to say Snowflake is very bad, so you have to move to Databricks or vice versa. So, but each of these platforms comes out its own strengths and weaknesses, right? And most of these, our view of these platforms is also time bound, right? Because all these companies also evolve in features and capabilities over time, right? But our biggest, driver into Databricks, I would say, is based on 4 different key factors, right? If you look at from a technology angle, is one is we don't want to get into a lock-in solution with any vendor, right? Databricks allows that. They are not a locked-in platform, right? It's all built on open source. The second thing is scalability and performance, and even with the workloads that we were running on Snowflake, now that we migrated to Databricks, side-by-side workloads, we are not like a, petabyte, data company where we have a lot of data, petabytes, like maybe like a banking, financial, insurance companies have. But even at the scale that we have probably like, close to 30 terabyte, enterprise data. But even in that scale, Databricks outperformed the same piece of code 30% better, right? Compared to Snowflake, right? Both on cost and, performance as a whole, right? Like by comparison, right? And when we were moving into the machine learning, AI agents, and all those stuff, Databricks had a leap, forward in terms of capabilities. And when we looked at where Snowflake was, 2 years ago, and where Databricks is there, even when you compare feature functionality, very basic stuff that we on the tech side say, can this be integrated to GitHub, right? Can the CI/CD pipelines can be built? Snowflake was very early in the journey, and 2 years ago, probably they are caught up to it, but Databricks was like 2 years ahead of them, right? So those were all the key technical factors, right? But I think that from a business perspective is also important, because when you make this multi-million-dollar, multi-year journey, more than the money, it's all about, right, do we reach a point where it will be a point of no return, or can we figure out what do you make out of this investment, right? I think that's where being open source, being able to scale, control your own destiny really made a big role, right? And we also looked at other tech tools, right, on the right-hand side. Like we have AWS native tools, like, we are AWS shop. We had Data Robot in-house, right? We did some POCs with it, but it really did not solve the entire data journey. It was only isolated to building machine learning models. And, those were the factors that was primarily used, right, to, decide that, hey, Databricks is the right strategy for us.
I remember our CEO coming into me when I had that contract in front of me with Databricks. And he said to me, can you promise me that we will not be replacing this 3 years from now? And I said, I promise you we will be building on it 3 years from now, and 3 years after that, and 3 years after that. Yeah. So it was not a decision that was taken in light, and I think Venkatesh started off by saying, we have become really stringent in our investments and where we make our investments as an organization. We are funded by Medicare and Medicaid. We don't have room for lots of mistakes. So this was a strategic bet, I will say, at the time, but one that we don't look back on with regret in any way, shape, or form.
Perfect. Next slide. A little bit about how Credence achieved with the migration, right? As I said earlier, one of the key differentiators that we really bring to the table is the use of our accelerators, right? Now, if you sort of take any of the migration projects that are out there without any accelerator, I would easily say it's around 9 to 12 months, right? Every organization takes the journey of 9 to 12 months to migrate from one data platform to the other. But with some of the accelerators that you see over here, which is T-Ingester, T-Discoverer, T-Dequest, we have these pre-built notebooks, pre-built knowledge that we bring to the table that actually accelerates the migration. And with Bayada, we have managed to do that entire, probably not entire, I know Elaine will ask
Not
for
yet.
a project plan.
Not yet.
But we have managed to do a lot of these with the accelerators within the 5 months of our engagement. So it's really speed to value. And most importantly, these are proven accelerators. That means these are not like, something newly built, but these are tried and tested with our other customers, evolved over a period of time, and that can really add value towards the migration journey that we bring in. What we earlier saw was more from a technical perspective, but a little bit about what we do with the data is some of the accelerators that you see over here is what we call as empowering a CAL delivery through AI. So many of the organizations that we work with, especially the payer providers, some of the common challenges that we start seeing is they have challenges with their EMR data, claims data, eligibility data, different file formats, and so on and so forth. What Credence really brings to the table is our accelerators are pre-built Databricks native solutions that can take all these data across different data sources, be it claims, clinical, and so on. And towards the right are some of the key use cases that we empower our customers with. Some of the common, and I get this a lot because I'm in front of the customers day in, day out, I get this a lot. Some of the challenges the customers really say is, Pradeep, we have challenges with our enterprise master patient index or data mastering. We have challenges creating Member 360, which is a combination of different data sources to create the golden record. That's where Credence Accelerator comes to the picture. So these are pre-built, tested and tried, proven across different customers, evolved over a period of time, enabling the users to achieve their use cases faster, but most importantly, accurate. And accurate is the KPI that many of our customers evaluate us with, and that's what our accelerators basically bring to the table. Yeah. Now, with our accelerator, what you earlier saw was the legacy architecture of Bayada, right? They were using Snowflake, SQL, and so on. What you see in the slide right now is the current future state architecture that we are heading towards. So, let me start with Elaine, right? When you see this architecture, of course, there's a lot of Databricks icon, but what thoughts goes into your mind when you implement such a future state architecture and make Bayada AI ready for 2026?
Sure. So I'll repeat myself and say orchestration and ecosystem are very top words here. It can seem very complicated when you're not in the tech space and you don't know how they all connect with each other, but it is easy for me to show the business the value that they are getting from an architecture that looks like this. The seamlessness, the way that the relationships are built between each of the tables. Folks are learning how to model data for the first time in forever from a business perspective. So we're readying the organization for that. And also seeing, we call this the chassis, right? We're building the chassis right now. And the chassis for us is like a Toyota. The Highlander and the Lexus is the same chassis. We're not at Lexus yet. We're at Highlander, and you can put all of the bells and whistles, but I will guarantee the organization that we have the chassis in place in order to be able to do that and to power that Lexus to the next stage. So that is our focus, and that's where we're grounded on, and the organization can get behind that and buy in.
And Venkatesh, just switching to a technical perspective, right? Can you share a little bit about your insight, what went through the thought process on this future state, and a little bit about the different accelerators that we have been using?
Yeah. So as Pradeep mentioned, so they have accelerators that can address different steps in the data flow journey, right? So if you want to do data quality checks, if you want to do ingestions, if you want to create data models, right? and you want to enable the semantic layer that can go into self-service consumption, they have built all these accelerators at every step in the journey. And also, underneath all of it is the code conversion, so it can automatically read code from one platform and convert the Databricks equivalent, right? So I think combination of all these things is what made our journey faster, right? You know, and meet where we need to go, right, in terms of the future growth. Right?
Yep.
So what's the future of Bayada looks like with this new architecture?
So from my perspective, and you know, when I go on the show to talk about where I think we'll be, I think every director in every office will be able to glean their own actionable and decision-making insights at the tip of their fingers, right? Natural language is allowing you to remove your dependency from the analyst. Give me a list. Who are the people? What should I do? Why am I off? For a director in an office who runs a team and services a community, to be able to quickly action on those items. We're a weekly business. We look at our data on a weekly basis so they can be that tactical in their approach. So I see them raising their engagement scores. I see them raising their ability to impact their communities, their ability to see good clinical outcomes and how that relates to a payer contract, and bringing both of those together and not them sitting in isolation. So my focus point sits at the director of every single office, because that's the role in our organization that drives our business forward. They're the ones who engage the caregivers and clinicians. They're the ones to say, hey, I don't need to be in the home. I can do remote patient monitoring. Help me do that. They're the ones to say, I need to optimize my job post performances, and I need feedback on those job posts, and I need to be able to implement changes. Bring in an agent to do that. I don't want to do it. We all know that it's not getting the hits it should be. Change it. Change the keywords. Do some search engine optimization. Give them assistance to help them in decision making. Give them assistance to help them manage. Give them assistance to help them be more compliant. If you saw compliance in home healthcare, it would make your toes curl. It is labor intensive, it is paper driven. Medicare still uses fax machines. Like, that is the reality that we live in. So we are trying to innovate and move forward this type of an industry so that we can, and David will say this too, we can kill the fax machine so that we're not sending faxes all the time. So when we level up, I will say the directors in every single office, we are dynamic in the industry, and you change care for the entire industry, which then lowers the cost of delivering care to the entire continuum. It is cheaper to receive care in your home than it is in the hospital, and we keep people out of the hospitals.
And any future use cases, Elaine, that you're going to focus on?
It's funny that this says future. This is actually now, and this is not all that much future. But you did talk about like mastering being a problem. It is a problem for us as well, of which Credence is helping us solve. You know, all of our entities across the organization, mastering that makes tremendous help in just generating payroll and revenue and claims, right? Marketing and workforce analytics has been an area that we've been focused on and have not moved the needle for the past 3.5 years. We need to be a lot more thoughtful. We need to deploy agents in this area because it's repetitive tasks that we do. Send out conditional offers, send out pre-boarding paperwork. Like, you don't need to put your talent acquisition partners behind that. We need to relay our value-based agreements, which the payers are coming to us with the table with the outcomes that we're achieving on those. So the director is responsible for the outcomes, and the enterprise is negotiating the contract. They need to come together better, and our data is going to help us do that, which means we can increase our reimbursement, which means we can pay a nurse more, and then the cycle continues and continues. AI documentation for clinicians is definitely an area that we've dabbled in. We've not like hit the nail on the head there. Some organizations just do a piece of documentation and not the whole workflow, and you really need to see it end to end. So we continue to make some dents in that. And then our clinical QA process, which is essentially auditing. When the state comes into your office and they want to see your charts, we need to be able to automate that. We want them to do their auditing remote. We don't want them in our offices doing that auditing, which means we have to remove all of the paperwork from that process, and we are definitely hell-bent on making that happen too. But these are now, I will say. I will come up with another list for future.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that means I need to update those slides. Well, we still have a minute, but why don't we happy to take a question or two from the audience?